Hello boys and girls, welcome to Mrs. Bandu's Math Movies. This is for Course 2, 4th period, Lesson 2-3, Simplifying Fractions. Our objectives in this lesson are to write equivalent fractions and to simplify fractions. Okay, so we have a couple of vocabulary phrases or terms that we want to look at, and the first one being equivalent fractions. Equivalent fractions are fractions that name the same amount. Okay, so for example, the fractions 1/2 and 3/6 would be equivalent because they name the same amount. A fraction written in simplest form is written in simplest form when the numerator and the denominators have no common factors other than 1. Okay? So we'll always want to answer, in general, we're going to answer our questions in simplest form, and we know it's in simplest form when we can no longer find the common factor for the numerator and the denominator. Okay, and let's look at some examples for writing equivalent fractions. Our first one is using multiples. Use a table of multiples to write 3 fractions equivalent to 3/7. That means I'm going to multiply the numerator, each numerator and denominator by the same number to get equivalent fractions. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. 2 times 7 gives me 14. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 4 is 12. And 4 times 7 is 28. Okay, so what this does now, it gives me, each column now gives me basically a new fraction. So the 3 fractions are 6/14, or 6/14, 9/21, and 12/28. And of course I could continue going on and on and on with these, but these are 3 fractions that are equivalent to 3/7. Okay, we can also find equivalent fractions by using factors, which means we'll actually be dividing in order to get some common, to get some equivalent fractions. Okay, so we want to find 3 fractions equivalent to 16/24. So the first thing we want to do is list the factors of each number and look for common factors. So all the factors of 16 are 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. The factors of 24 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24. I tried to think of everything I could that multiplied together to give me 21. And remember, it's basically 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Then I would start repeating 6 and 4, but that's the same thing. So I don't have to, I know I can stop when I would start repeating the numbers in my list. Okay, so the common factors that they have other than 1 are 2 and 4 and 8. Okay, so I'm going to use those to help me here. If I divide both the numerator and the denominator by 2, I get 16 divided by 2 is 8, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. I go back to the original fraction. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 24 divided by 4 is 6. And 8. 16 divided by 8 is 2. 24 divided by 8 is 3. Okay, so 3 fractions that are equivalent to 16/24 are 8/12, 4/6 and 2/3. Okay, so if I'm using factors, I'm dividing to get smaller values for the numerator and denominator. If I'm using multiples, I'm going to be multiplying and getting larger numbers. Okay. Our next example is simplifying by dividing. Okay, let me get that. There we go. Okay, so we want to write 12/30 or 12/30ths in simplest form. What we want to do here is divide the numerator and the denominator by a common factor. Okay, so here our common factor was 3 in our first step here. So they used 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. 30 divided by 3 is 10. Okay, now if necessary, divide again by another common factor. 4 and 10 are both even numbers. That means at the very least they have a common factor of 2. So let's divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Now when I look at 2 and 5, actually 2 and 5 are both prime numbers, so that means I'm finished. The greatest common factor, or the only factor that 2 and 5 have in common, is 1, so I know I can stop. So in simplest form, 12/30ths is 2/5. Okay, number 4, using the greatest common factor to simplify a fraction. There are 28 students in Maya's homeroom. Of these, 20 students have a pet. What fraction of the students have a pet? Write your answer in simplest form. Okay, this one is specifically asking us to think of the greatest common factor of 20 and 28. You can do that either by number sense or by listing out factors. So let's list them out. Factors of 20 would be 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. The next thing that I would put in my list would be 10 and 2, and I've already stated that one. The factors of 28 are 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7, and I believe that's it. Okay, so what I do now is I look for the largest number that appears in both lists, and that number is 4. So the greatest common factor here is 4. So I'm going to divide 20 by 4 and also 28 divided by 4. So 20 divided by 4 gives me 5. 28 divided by 4 gives me 7. 5 and 7 again are both prime. Their only common factor is 1, so that tells me I'm in simplest form. So the answer here, the fraction of students that have a pet, is 5/7. Okay, so we've come now to the end of our notes for this. Please complete the quick check questions before coming into class, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.